Dan Willard has just been killed by Ryan Reynolds. Officer Terry Oites has just sat down to interview the only witness, Lloyd Peabody. Terry and Lloyd went way back, important thing being Lloyd trusted Terry. But Terry and Ryan were also longtime friends, and Ryan told Terry that if he couldn't frame someone else for the murder, Ryan would expose Terry's dark past. Well, I was sitting on the bench, down on Mill Street, on my way home from work, stressed out about whether... Lloyd tells Terry that he was sitting there and a random man walked by him. Then a few seconds later, across the street, he saw Ryan Reynolds punch Dan Willard and then shoot him. Terry proceeds to ask questions. How big was the scar on the shooter's face when he passed you on the bench? The man that passed me wasn't the shooter, but the scar, he did have a scar. It was about 4 inches long and about 1 inch wide. On the shooter's coat, he was wearing a blue jacket. What was the logo on the back of it? The shooter was wearing a tan coat, but the man that passed me, he was wearing a blue coat. Now Terry continues to question Lloyd, but something is off with Terry. Lloyd doesn't give it much thought, however, but the thing is, Terry seems to be mistaken about who the shooter was, repeatedly asking about the shooter walking by Lloyd, asking how short he was, asking if Lloyd noticed his blonde hair and did he see the cooler in his hand. But Ryan Reynolds never walked by Lloyd. A month and a half goes by. The case, one that should have been really just open and shut, it's still open. So Terry visits Lloyd at his auto parts job. And again, he asks him for a statement. Alright, you got a minute? Okay, cool. So, I want you to take a look at these photos, alright? Lloyd looks at the photos. It's pictures of the man that walked by Lloyd, but he's pulling a small black object out of his coat. Then a photo of him walking over towards Dan Willard. Lloyd pauses. He now recalls that he did indeed see the man grab something out of his coat and then cross the street. Alright, take a good look. Alright, now, I want to confirm your statement about Dan Willard's murder back in August. So I want you to imagine that you're back there. Okay? It's August, you just got off of work, you're walking home. Okay, you get to the bus stop, you're stressed out. You might not make your rent. And you're sitting there. You're wearing your favorite, that stupid Christmas sweater. You're wearing your favorite hat. And it's a cool evening. Okay, the shooter walks past you on the sidewalk and you say hi to him, but he doesn't respond. You see him reaching in his coat and you see him pull something out. You don't know what it is though. You're looking the other direction, innocuously, and then you hear the fight break out over on the other side of the street. Okay? And then you see the man that just walked past you in the blue jacket holding the gun pointed at Dan Willard. You hear the shot and you take off running. Is that right? Yeah? Lloyd agrees with most of the details from Terry's story. But he now recalls, and he corrects Terry, that he did see the man cross the street, and he wasn't looking the other direction. And he agrees that he did see the man pull something out of his coat. But he doesn't agree that he saw the man who passed him in the blue jacket shoot Dan Willard. December 29th, 2020. Lloyd Peabody sits across from Officer Terry Oites in the interrogation room. Lloyd was called in to give a statement one last time. There are about 10 people watching over there behind the glass. So let's keep this moving and try your best to recall as much detail as fast as you can. Now we already have all this information confirmed by video and forensics, and we simply need you to give us your side one more time for the file. If you try hard enough and you're smart enough, you should have no problem recalling these things. Terry shows Lloyd a photograph. It's the man in the blue coat, Roger Wesley, but he's pointing a gun at Dan Willard. Lloyd looks at the photo, the metaphorical wheels turning in his head. Lloyd proceeds to tell Terry what happened one final time. Every time Lloyd recalls some of the details, Terry would give him a smile and a bit of encouragement, but for others, he gave a look of disappointment and said something like, "Lloyd, try harder, remember there are people watching." This got to Lloyd. It all accumulated to these final crucial questions. Was there a scar on the shooter's face? Yes. Was the shooter short or tall? Short. What color hair did the shooter have? He had blonde hair. Was this man the shooter? Terry shows Lloyd a picture of Ryan Reynolds. No. But Ryan Reynolds was the shooter. Was this man the shooter? Yes. Hi, I'm Eric, and the film you just saw was designed to highlight the findings in peer-reviewed studies of the psychological possibility of memory manipulation. Specifically in the eyewitness context, where after experiencing an event, individuals are exposed to some form of misinformation, which they will later, when tested, recall the misinformation freely with varying degrees of probability and severity. So in scene 1, when Terry first sat down with Lloyd, Terry used questions containing misinformation and questions that required Lloyd to make some information up in order to answer them. These techniques made it likely that Lloyd would end up incorporating these false suggestions into his memory. So Terry was planting these suggestion seeds that would later manifest in accordance with the misinformation effect in Lloyd's altered memory. Terry also intentionally phrased his question such that it was implied that the things he was asking about happened through the use of the word "the" addressed in source 1. This was found to make it more likely for an event to be recalled even if false. In scene 2, when Terry interviews Lloyd a second time, Terry uses false evidence, imagination, and replicated procedures from a study in the book to cause Lloyd to recall details he originally did not and plant seeds for further later manipulation. So according to the book, having an individual imagine fictitious events makes it easier to plant the misinformation. In studies on false evidence creating false memories, it was found that individuals would recall a fictitious event if presented with convincing false evidence. In one study, 80% of participants, when given false evidence, recalled the fictitious event. Terry also guides Lloyd while he's imagining, telling Lloyd mostly true details with a few mixed in. This replicates the procedures of an experiment in the book, which led to false recall based on mixing in the false events with real. In scene 3, Terry uses social pressure and fake evidence. In the book, a study on social pressure, along with comments and positive negative feedback, led to the creation of a false memory of a crime that the individual had never committed in past. Other underlying elements was that Lloyd trusted Terry. Source 4's study found that repeatedly being exposed to the truth from a source made it more likely for participants to freely recall false memories they were told from the same source. So Terry, as a cop, also had more power relative to Lloyd, as Lloyd being just a simple mechanic. Source 7's study found that individuals assigned a low power ranking in a study were influenced by the recall of high power individuals. The misinformation effect is a scary concept. That being said, fortunately, the events of this film were only loosely based on peer-reviewed studies and, in some ways, poorly represented accepted knowledge on memory manipulation. Thank you for watching, and happy holidays.